My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Hey, community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. And, I'm just here to tell you guys, if you have not cleaned up holiday decorations, that's okay, because I have not either. Claudia's birthday is actually right after Christmas, so we tend to leave them up a little longer, but I'm hoping possibly this week we'll start to clean up Christmas, but there's honestly a 50-50 chance. We're still trying to recover from the holiday, from the birthday, from all the things. So, going into 2025, if your to-do list is taking longer than usual, remember, that is A-okay. Let's hear from today. Let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors. Today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch is proudly sponsored by Prepared. Their mission is to be public safety's most assistive technology. Revolutionizing how we handle emergencies, Prepared is dedicated to saving more lives and making our communities safer. Learn more about how Prepared is transforming emergency response at prepared911.com. Our next sponsor is Zybex Media. Since 2020, Zybex has been creating impactful recruitment films for their customers. Zybex Media offers their expertise, providing a full range of media solutions designed to attract and retain talent for all PSAPs. Visit zybex.com/media to learn more. These partnerships help us continue to spread the message that the world needs more dispatchers. Interested in partnering with us? Head to theraspydispatcher.com. As always, thank you to our sponsors, and definitely check them out if you have not had the chance to yet. So for today's episode, I am thrilled to sit down with my guest, a senior telecommunicator and CTO with the Danville Fire Department Emergency Communications. With over 30 years of experience in public safety, ranging from EMS to corrections and now 911, I'm going to bring on my guest, Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Enjoying this snow.
Oh my gosh. It is snowing. Is this the big winter storm I've been hearing about on the news? See, in California, we just, we watch from afar.
Yeah, it is, but we got a small dusting north of us that hit pretty hard. So that still looks pretty on the ground.
Do you guys, when it snows like really bad out there, do you guys get stuck in your center?
Sometimes we do. Yes. Yes, sometimes we do. But we can go over to the fire station and sleep, and there's a fire station next door. So they open up beds for us to rest in and recoup. So.
Man, weather, we're super lucky out here in California. I spent some time in the Midwest. So weather is just not a factor out here the way it is in the Midwest, like it's different.
Yeah.
Like we might get a little rain, no flood, but we don't do well with big weather change.
Yeah, when it comes to snow and weather around here, people just don't know how to drive. It's ridiculous. And that just all the common sense goes out the window.
Oh my gosh. I went to school in Iowa, Forest City, Iowa. Shout out Waldorf University. And my coach was like this Midwest man, like born and raised, would eat potatoes for breakfast and steak, and we're driving through like a whiteout blizzard in these little vans because I played basketball out there, and you can't see anything. Like it's white, and all of the California kids were in the back of this van, like looking outside, like what? He is not slowing down. He is doing 65, 70, like he can't see anything. Wow. And then we go over or under an overpass that we couldn't see, and it clear up for a second, and they go right back to white. And I'm like,
Yep.
these people are built different out here, because I thought I was going to
Yes,
die
they are.
in the back of that van.
Yes, they are.
Oh, man. Well, 30 years in public safety is no joke. How did you get into public safety?
Well, you saying that out loud makes me feel really old. So thank you for that. Actually, yeah, seasoned. I like that terminology better.
Mhm.
No, it kind of started, I guess, when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a child, there's two things I really loved. I love guitars and I love fire trucks. And I still love music to this day. And I remember it's like being 5, 6, 7. My parents going to the local fire station for the fish fries and stuff. I was just always enamored with the fire trucks and just emergency stuff. So when the time came, when I got older, I jumped on the volunteer fire department and ran with that. Got my firefighter 1, firefighter 2 hazmat stuff, and then got my medical stuff. Then went to work for an EMS agency, and I really fell in love with it at that point. I just love helping people and just helping people at their worst moments has always been something that's just kind of been in my heart. I guess I was born with it. My dad was a pastor and a caring person, so it's just, I guess it was just in my DNA.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And I mean, you went from kind of the fireside to corrections to 911. What was that pivot, that journey like?
The pivot was EMS, it can be really dark at times. Well, not to say the others aren't, but I just got to a point where I was just a little burnout with EMS, just seeing so much trauma because the ambulance service that I worked for, not only did we run EMS and non-emergency stuff, we also picked up bodies from accidents and murders and whatever. So we were just body recovery also. That played a big toll too. And just kind of emotionally, I got kind of burnt out. So I had a friend of mine that worked for the prison. He goes, "Hey, come over here and work." So I said, "Okay, let's give that a whirl." So I went over there and I loved every minute of that for 20 years. I was a hostage negotiator. I was on the state hostage negotiations team for 13 years, gang investigator on a gang unit. I was able to do a whole lot of stuff with the prison system and learn a lot. And then after 20-something years, again, a little burnout. I said, "Well, let's try something different." I'm like, 911 had an open. I said, "Let's give this a shot." And I fell in love with it instantly. I love doing 911. It's a difficult job. You hear some crazy stuff, but just knowing you're able to help people, and it's not a job you have to worry about being rated on. You don't get a lot of recognition in it. It's like the hostage negotiation team. Nobody ever thinks, "Oh, the hostage negotiators talked this person out." No, it was always the police got them out. They did this or they did that. So it's not saying it's a thankless job, but it kind of is at times. People don't always recognize the dispatch. That's okay. But I just love being there to help people without necessarily having the recognition.
Yeah. It's funny that you said, you loved corrections so much. My professor at Waldorf University, the year before he came and started our program, he was the assistant warden at Leavenworth Penitentiary. And he said he tried to get me to go corrections, like so tough. He was like, "You would love it. It's great." And there's like a lot of people I talk to who actually really enjoy working in the prisons. Like people really like it. So I think, and then the fact that you are a crisis negotiator and then making that pivot into 911, do you think those skills really help you be a better 911 dispatcher?
Oh, definitely. The weird thing is, I went through a 2-week basic training to be a hostage negotiator, and we trained monthly. Then when I went through 911 school, I'm like, wait, a lot of this is my hostage negotiation skills. It was really strange. I mean, how you talk to people and relate to people. So it all just kind of meshed together. It's really kind of seamless almost, the both of it, how you handle the stuff and talk to people.
Yeah. And I do love the fact that, you did the first one for years, recognized that you were ready to move on, and then, did another thing, enjoyed that, recognized you were ready to move on, and then jumped into another thing. I think there's something so beautiful about that for me, because I think sometimes we can get very pigeonholed and feel like we can't move and like every level of first responder, no matter if you're fire, EMS, patrol, dispatch, these skills that we are acquiring are so adaptable. And
Mhm.
even if you're going to move to the private sector, or you're going to go move outside of first responder world, like these skills can go to other places if you are no longer feeling fulfilled where you currently are. And I think that's,
They can, yeah, they can. And part of the problem I see is with that is you got too many people saying, stay where you're at. You got a good retirement here. Well, you do, and you can still carry that over, but it's okay to move on, because moving on it was a mental, for moving from corrections. Well, moving from all of them was a mental health decision. I was
mm,
at a point where I needed to move on and
yeah.
just hit a reset button for myself and for my life and mentally. And
Mhm.
it's okay if you're out there listening right now and you're thinking about switching jobs. You've been there for 20 years. It's okay to switch. You're good to
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
Just follow your heart and follow what you need to do. It's okay.
No, I mean, it really, excuse me, is great advice. And I think it's something that in leadership, we need to recognize too. Like, I tell my coworkers to this day, I'm like, you should always expect that I'm leaving. Like, and it's not
Yeah,
that I dislike a department. It's not that I'm just always looking to improve, to advance, what other options are out. Like, that's just how I was raised. So
yeah,
you should, if you're just expecting me to stay, don't have that mindset, because I'm always, and I encourage everyone I talk to professionally, like, always have your head on a swivel and look for other options, other exciting opportunities. But more
yeah,
importantly, your department should be investing in you so you're able to leave, but you choose to stay. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
you're giving me the skills, you're training me, you're pouring into me, and I appreciate that. So that's why I stay. But if I wanted to leave, I'm equipped to do so. And that just helps with
yeah.
our
Well,
retention.
some of us have skills too. Yes, you're good in what you do, and you learn and you
Mhm.
build. But if you love your industry and love what you do, you want to better your industry. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like you said, you get pigeonholed. You get stuck. If you get stuck right here in just a dispatch center,
Yeah.
yes, you can do a lot of good there, but there's other places you can do good too, and spread and learn and help build what we have and build on our industry. And
Mhm.
it's just an opportunity. If that's what you want to do it.
Yeah. And it's I even had someone, I did an interview yesterday. Um they're in dispatch, but they're also a 911 handler, like a handler for their canine program.
Mhm.
So they have a therapy dog, and if there's a critical incident, they'll go out, but the dog goes to work with them, and it's a really cool lateral kind of assignment
Yeah,
that they created in dispatch. I'm like, these things help with retention departments, giving these opportunities to do something a little different while still doing the job that you sign up to do.
yeah. It's a little. This is a little off the mark, but
Mhm.
I've been involved in professional wrestling a time or two in my life. My son is too. But there's this guy that runs a wrestling school, and his goal is to get his guys to move up and to move on. And he's
Yeah.
always said, if you're with me for more than 4 or 5 years, I've not done my job. He said, I
Yes.
don't want you to stay here and work for me. I want you to move on to other things. And he's had students that have moved on. He's got students that are now wrestling for WWE and
Mm.
doing things and making big names for themselves. And that's his goal. He does not want you to stay with him more than like 5 years. He wants to
Yeah.
train you to get you to move on and adapt. And I think that lacks a lot in our centers and with
Mhm.
leadership sometimes. They just want to hold you because they're worried about, and I know it's a big deal about having staffing or staffing issues. You don't want to see people leave, but you should want to encourage your staff regardless and build them and
Yeah.
let them grow.
1,000%. Well, speaking of leadership and, kind of taking ownership in our centers, can you explain what non-positional leadership means to you and how dispatchers at any level can really embody this concept?
Yes, so many people just they look at leadership as a title, and I think we that's been embedded in us our whole lives. Especially nowadays, it's starting to change up a little bit. I see a lot of people at conferences and say they stand up in front of everybody and say we're all leaders, and I think that's
Mhm.
great. It's starting to grow. It's starting to become an actual trend, and people are actually starting to believe they can be a leader. But back in the day, some of us old heads still had the mentality that, the boss is the boss and I'm just a peon down here doing what I'm told. But there's so many ways you can lead. You look back in history, you've got people like Rosa Parks, who was the lady. She changed so many things. And she sat on the bus. She wasn't going to move. And she didn't have this big position. She didn't have this big title, but she made a statement on what she wanted to do. And she led to a great outpouring and desegregation. And she helped with a lot of that stuff. It's not about titles. It's about influence. We can influence people in our jobs. Like if you're a mentor or a trainer, yes, it's kind of a leadership position or a CTO. But still, I've had people come to me when I wasn't a mentor or a trainer and ask me questions about my job or what we do or what I would do. And that's still becoming a leader. I remember when I started corrections, I had a training officer. I actually had 2 training officers because I was working split shifts. They were both really good trainers. Well, one was really good. The other one was so-so. But after I had my mentorship with them, I got on shift and there was this older gentleman. His name was Stump. I always thought that was his nickname, but that was actually his last name. And he's been with the prison system 20-something years at this point. And he has taught me more. He wasn't a training officer. He'd never been promoted to sergeant, no nothing. He was just the guy that came in and worked the floors and worked the beats. And he taught me more in my time with him than I ever learned with any of my CTOs. He was probably one of my biggest influences and why I could do the job as well as I did, and taught me all these little ins and outs and little tricks, and taught me how to watch the inmates and their behavior and their hands and all these different little details that I never really learned formally. But he, just as one of my coworkers, was my greatest leader at that time. And that's key. He took the initiative in the time, which I also allowed him to teach me too. That's a big key too. I allowed him to help me learn that stuff. He modeled the way. He showed me how to be a good officer. He communicated effectively, which is important. And he empowered me to be good at what I did. And now that I'm in a CTO position, and I was in a mentorship position at the prison too, where I trained new officers, and I tried to implement what Stump had taught me into my daily routines. And I still take what he's taught me to this day when I'm talking to people and training people.
And it's true, sometimes, departments are so small that it doesn't allow for a lot of opportunity to officially move up in these leadership roles. And we have a history of being a little toxic in our centers, and
no way.
women, we're kind of known for that stuff. But there is a certain level that we need to take ownership for the environments that we're creating in our centers and really focus on the things we can control and change. And there's always going to be a beef with leadership supervisors in some way, shape, or form. They're the man. They're looking out for the man as well as hopefully looking out for their people. But there's a little bit of a disconnect because of the role they're in. So I would challenge people to really look at their centers and not wait for department leadership to create the environment that you want to work 12, 14, 18 hours in.
Yeah, well, like you said, you got to take ownership. And a lot of people just come to work and just do the 8 to 5 and go home. And that's fine. That's okay too. If that's what you want to do and that's good for your mental health, you can do that. But if you're somebody who wants to grow and move, take those steps, just focus on being your best. Lead through integrity. Be, if you say it, live up to it. Do what you tell others to do, That's big because people, if you tell them to do something, they are watching you and you're putting a target on their back. It's very important. And that builds trust and, and seek feedback. You want to hear what people have to say or how you're doing your job because, and you're not always going to get the best feedback and also receive feedback, negative or positive, in the best way you can. Just take it. Don't get all pouty and pissy, excuse my French. If it's negative, just take it and see what you can learn from it and build on that because that builds character, you know.
It's funny. On the show, someone gave advice that I was like, huh, that makes so much sense. And it like really just opened up the way I look at my role in regards to feedback of written feedback, coaching, DOCs, like these documented feedback. The person I was interviewing was just like, it sits in your file for a year and it leaves. Why do we worry so much about documented feedback? Now, if you're getting written up every week, that's between your union. But but documented coaching, conversations, which is really just guidance, like official guidance. We can get really stuck on that, like the officialness of it. But really, like, it's not that deep, like it's not that deep.
And speaking about that communication, this reminds me of something. I don't mean to throw it off a little bit. But
Please,
this is something
tangent
I bring
away.
up. This is something I bring up in a lot of my classes.
Mhm.
If you have an employee that you need to talk to about something that they've done wrong or right, don't come to them at the beginning of the shift and say, I need to speak with you at the end of the shift. Because I know me personally, you tell me that, that's all that's going to be on my mind all day. What did I do? Did I do this? I'm not going to do my job effectively. I'm not going to be good at what I'm doing because I'm worried about what you have to say at the end of the day. Then when I get in there, it's like, oh, we got this certificate for you. You did a really good job. Thank you for, like, dude, couldn't you have told me this morning? If you want to talk to somebody, just when you're ready to talk to them, bring them in. But don't tell them I want to see you later this afternoon and then drag it out, whether it's good or bad, because that puts a lot of unneeded stress on the person, especially if they're having to work a 12-hour shift dispatching.
I completely agree. I'd even like to know I have a surprise present coming my way. Like, I don't want to wonder for hours about my surprise present. I just want it when you're going to give it to me. So
exactly.
I agree 1,000% with that statement. And if you're gonna give bad news, like, try to give it so I don't have to go back to the floor with tears in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, now I gotta go
if you're
back.
Gonna wait till the end of the day. If you're gonna wait till the end of the day, just come get me at the end of the day, 10 minutes or an hour before the end of my shift, and say, hey, come on in the office. I need to talk to you. Mm-hmm. That way I don't have to go back to work if it's something bad or.
Yeah. I think sometimes, I think we do need to give supervisors grace because they do a tough job. So shout out to supervisors out there. And they oftentimes do not receive a lot of training to do said job. Oftentimes they're kind of left to the wolves to figure it out. And I think that's across all industries, not just law enforcement, first responder world. But we have to really connect with our people outside of coaching, outside of feedback and discipline, So when we do have to have those tough conversations, they go over well, like people actually feel supported. Like, Stephen only talks to me when I'm in trouble, like that doesn't feel good. So being really intentional with how we lead and how we show up outside of those tough conversations, I think goes a long way.
It's funny you say that because I just made a post on LinkedIn a few days ago talking about, about leadership. Mm-hmm. Like when somebody sends you an email or somebody talks to you, at least respond. If it's not really a big email you need to respond to, at least say, thank you, I got it. Because if you just start ignoring all my emails, I'm going to start feeling like you're not listening to me or doing whatever. So just a quick response, just thank you, got it, or got it. That goes a long way. Little things make a difference when it comes to communication and, talking to your staff.
It's true. Position. And I think we can get in the habit of, especially with email communication, of kind of like when you leave someone on read, but you thought you messaged them back. Like, you're like, shit, I didn't send that text. I thought I could have sworn I answered you. And then it's 3 years later, and you're like, oh, that's why they never messaged back. So if you are someone who's in your email a lot, like, don't wait to send the response. Just do it right then and there, because it can just get buried in life,
Yeah, it can. I've had stuff where I've text messaged somebody and I thought I text messaged them and I go back and pull it up and the message is still there, but I never hit send. you know,
And then you're
My
mad at them.
ADHD
Like,
just
why
kicked
didn't
in.
you text me back?
Yeah. I saw a squirrel and forgot to hit send,
For real. Golly. Okay. So change in 911 is constant. We probably talk about this quite frequently because we hate it. We hate change in 911, especially right now. I think there's a big push. Next generation 911 is starting to kind of be rolled
Yes.
out. It's struggling a little bit, but it's coming. From that to having to change our schedules because of staffing shortages. Change is just constantly
Yep.
happening in our centers. How can dispatchers and departments as a whole create a culture that's willing and happy to adapt to these changes?
Well, first you have to understand change. Change is inevitable. It's coming. You know, let's think about this. We have our cars scheduled to change the oil. We do that on a regular basis. We change our sheets on our bed. We change our clothes. There's so many. We change out filters in our car. We change. I mean, there's so many things we change in life on a regular basis. It's perfectly fine with us because we know that if we don't, things are going to screw up. If we don't change our oil, our engine's going to lock up and fry. So in 911, if we don't change or follow the trends or follow what's going on or grow, we're going to just burn out. We're going to destroy what we have, and we're not going to be effective in what we do. And I think from a leadership point of view, well, first we should recognize the types of change there is. There's the planned change, and then there's also the unexpected change. The plan change, where I was going to go with this, leaders just need to take it one step at a time. They don't need to just come in and say, hey, starting tomorrow, we're going to do this. Kind of lead into it a little bit. Just kind of ease people into it. The unexpected change, that's where you're going to have to learn to adapt and just jump into it and say, oh, well, like all of a sudden the CAD crashes, you got to go to pen and paper. That's a change there instantly where you have to adapt and go on. There's nothing you can do about that. Or a sudden storm comes up, a tornado or whatever that's you're really not expecting, and you have to adapt to that chaos that's going on. And anything, bad wrecks, fires, whatever, you just have to adapt. Change can be anywhere and anything. It's not necessarily just policies and procedures, excuse me. But it can be just anything from our day-to-day lives, possibly. Shoot, if you think, I don't know if many people went to church. I was a preacher's kid, like I said earlier. But if somebody walked into church, a new person walked into church and sat down in a pew, and that belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Jones that have sat in that same pew for 20 years, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are going to walk up there and say something to you because they don't want to change and possibly sit in the pew behind you or sit in the one in front of you. They want to sit right there because that's where they've sat for 20 years. And not being able to change is dangerous. It really is. It's really dangerous. So,
especially in 911, and I think that we as a industry have been kind of the last thought as an industry as a whole, from our departments and from the public, and for a long time. It's getting better now. I think it's a really interesting time to be in this industry because of the spotlight that's being shined on us a little brighter now. But I think because of that lack of acknowledgement, that lack of recognition, our foundation, our technological structure, has not been, and we're seeing the issues with that lack of focus for X amount of years. It's causing this really tough transition, at least on the tech front. And I would say even on the staffing front, it feels like all of a sudden everyone's like, wait, we have no dispatchers and we don't have enough dispatchers. It feels like one day they just woke up and were like, oh my God, we have so many people calling 911 now, but we didn't think about this transition of getting more people in here. And now we're trying to play catch up, and
Yes,
we're
we
not
are.
doing a very great job at catching up.
No, we are. Here in Virginia, though, you talk about dispatchers and training. I'm getting ready to have a meeting tomorrow with a group. We're trying to get an initiative to where we get dispatcher training in some of our high schools to where they can get their EMD, EFD, those various things, and sit in on dispatch centers. And then once they graduate from high school, if they get hired with the center, all they do is pretty much have to go through the basic training and then get their training in the field training, and they're done. It kind of expedites the process a little bit and gets people excited about it. And we're talking about that in our larger cities. And next month we're meeting with the Virginia Department of Education. There's a group of us going up to look at the class curriculum and see if they'll put that out. So that's a little side note on that.
So cool. So, and it's honestly one of the reasons that I promote this position, this role. And some people might not think it's a great reason, but I think it's a great reason. I went to school and got my higher education and blah, 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 blah. But not everybody does that or wants to do that.
No.
Or, and as someone who's done it, some things we could have left there,
Yeah.
But this job, especially, in big cities like California, and I imagine big cities in the Midwest, is entry level, 18, 19-year-olds who don't want to go to college and make that investment can get into these centers and have benefits, have building retirement, at 18, 19. If 18, 19-year-old Ashley was building benefits in retirement, like 34 Ashley would look great, So I think it's such a good entry-level job for people that does not require any training. You have to be willing to learn and adapt and, cry in a corner only every other day. But it's such a good job, for folks to come out of high school. And I think that's awesome. You guys are putting that together.
But I feel too with that process also, it gives you before you jump in feet first, it kind of gives the kids a chance to see, okay, I'm going to like this or I'm not going to like it, because it's not cut out for everybody. This job is not cut out. I mean, if you have to be up and moving around all the time and running around and doing this, doing that, sitting there, answering the phone and talking to people may not be what you want to do, or you may not just be able to handle the bad calls, just hearing that stuff. We had a girl one time, her husband was actually a police officer, and we had cameras throughout the city, and he wrecked his patrol car. We saw it on camera, and that was her last day at work. She never came back to work. So it's just, it's not for everybody. When you hire and you talk to people, I know we're getting off the subject to change, but that's cool.
No, please.
Let's just ride with it. You have to let people know when they come in that this may not be for you. You have to be open and honest about what they're going to have to do and what they're going to have to hear, and let them make that choice. It's not just, oh, this is cool, we can do this and this and this, and dispatch the police and the fire, and no, it's got some long-term effects that can haunt you too. So we just need to be open with them, and I think the high school program kind of gives them a choice to make a decision. Okay, either I want to do this now, or I want to focus my career on something else. So
yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. And one of the things that I said in the keynote that I just did out in Kansas, when I was talking about how the Raspy Dispatcher kind of came to be, and what kind of inspired all this, is that you're in getting your degree in law enforcement, criminal justice. You're going to go be a cop, and you're sitting in this class as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, and you have no idea, like, really the realities, what life is yet. And for me, looking back at that time, we never talked about dispatch as an option. We talked about all the cool stuff, SWAT, tactical, like all this stuff, but we never talked about dispatch. And so if you don't give them access, whether it's 15-year-olds in high school learning about this option, or 18, 19, 20-year-olds who want to go into law enforcement, into the first responder realm. If you don't even shine a light on it as a possibility, no one's even going to think about it, consider it.
Yeah.
Because no one knows
They don't.
what life is at 19, 20 until you get out there and you're like, wait, this isn't for me. I didn't want this,
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, too, we sit behind closed doors. We're never seen. We're heard over the radio, but we're never seen. Nobody knows our faces. Nobody knows our names. We're just operate or whatever. And, luckily with our fire department, when we go to job fairs, our community relations takes us with them, and we set up for dispatch stuff and talk to people about dispatch and show them some things. I'm trying to get some things. The fire department has all the cool stuff that they can put on turnout gear, look at the truck, look at the jaws of light, look at all that cool stuff. Us, here's our CAD notes, and here's our. But,
you're like, let me see that job of life, and just start crushing a monitor. You're like, yeah, see, these are the monitors.
Yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about doing and if anybody out there does these things, have you seen those little toys they have on Amazon? It's a game. It's 4 little handles. Everybody grabs them, and you hit the button, and the last person to hit the button gets shot.
Oh,
okay. I want to get one of those. Like, they could get a group of kids together. Who can answer the phone the fastest? When we hit ring, y'all hit it and see who the last one did, who answered it the quickest or who didn't. Just to kind of draw attention to your booth or get some attention from the kids.
Yeah.
Because most of them come by and say, "Oh, okay." It's kind of like, I don't know if anybody's watched The Office, but when Dunder Mifflin and Michael Scott went to the job fair, they took one piece of paper with them, and this is what we do. One piece of paper can change the world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's true though. We got to find ways to engage, those future dispatchers and get them interested and wanting to talk about dispatch. I think one thing that we have going for us is just how tech heavy we're going to be in 10, 15 years. I mean, I think the generation that's coming up is going to eat that stuff up. Like, wow, I'm trying to dispatch when it's like Iron Man, where we're like, when that thing happens, like I'm in it. I'm in there.
Yeah.
I'll probably never leave once it does that.
Me too. But think about this. A lot of kids, you talk about the future and what they do now. A lot of kids don't really use keyboards much anymore. They text on their phones. They use those small screens to text. And I was talking to somebody. I said, why can't we adapt a keyboard? Like I've heard them say that these young people have a hard time typing on the keyboard. Well, why can't we just figure out a way to adapt and help them? Maybe we can get a keyboard the size of a cell phone that they can text just as fast or type it up just as fast doing it that way,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I remember when I was a commuter student in middle school, so I had a phone, so just in case I get kidnapped, I could call somebody. I had the little Nokia brick phone that you played Snake on and stuff.
Snake, exactly.
Yeah, Snake. You play, and you know how you'd text under the desk during class, and you could do it all by not looking at your phone and pop off text messages and stuff. That's kind of the idea of just change, right? Natural change. If you handed me a phone now, I wouldn't be able to do that because I no longer have to live that way. So I don't have.
You don't have to live in poverty.
I don't have that skill anymore. So being able to adapt and do things like consider those things is amazing. We even had someone on the show and they said, why don't we offer different schedules to people who need more adaptability because they have families at home? We're short-staffed so much that we're mandating all these people, and yet we have someone who can do the job, wants to do the job, but wants to do 5/8, or whatever it looks like, 5/8, because that would be more of a better schedule for them. But we automatically no, we work 3/12s, and it's one of these. But they simply ask why don't we adjust some things to increase our staffing, reach our attention, like,
Yep.
and there's going to be a lot of play that goes into that statement, and people are probably screaming right now, like, but just that mindset of like,
Yeah.
how can we change? How can we adapt?
Yeah.
What can we do differently that we maybe haven't done before that will help our people?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, talking about that change, just something simple. You talk about the shift change. You can even just have a schedule set up. You have your regular people to work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, why don't you squeeze somebody in there that works 2 p.m. to 2 a.m.? They kind of work a power shift. They kind of work a little bit of both shifts to help out when they're the busiest times.
Yeah.
And then let them, I know a guy right now with our department that would love to work 1 to 1 or 2 to 2. He would jump on it right now. He would probably take a pay cut for it. He would love it so much. But no, you were talking about change. You came back to change real quick, and there's 4 things that come along with change. That it's actually the 4 steps of change pretty much. There's denial. We deny change. We don't want it. Then there's the resistance where we're like, we're not doing this. Then you have the exploration where it's like, well, that might work. Then there's acceptance. So you have the denial stage, the resistance stage, the exploration stage, and we finally accept it. And that don't happen within an hour. Don't happen necessarily within a week. And it may not happen in a year with some people, as hard-headed as they are. But that's what we have to learn. And instead of saying, why is this happening to me? We need to sit back and say, what can I learn from this? Or how is this going to better me? So those are important things to kind of take away right there to look at.
Yeah. And you've presented at conferences about workplace attitude and new staff onboarding. And this is a topic that I definitely talk about heavy as well. My session's called Gatekeeping the Application Process. Like, let's make this tough job easier to get into, like, why are we making the process so hard? But how important is it to take care of new dispatchers? Because I believe retention starts the moment they submit that application.
Oh, it does. And as soon as they submit the application, and as soon as we hire them and say, hey, you're hired, this is your start date, you should make them feel like a team member from day one. Because when a football team, when the NFL signs a rookie, guess what? He's part of the team now. He's a team member. He's not just the rookie. Yeah, he is, but he's a team member, and they treat him like a team member. And we should treat our new hires. I remember when I got hired into dispatch, I was there for a while. My first night on shift, my first night shift, I walked in. I'm walking across the parking lot, and I see a coworker who I haven't met yet from night shift coming up. I opened the door for him. I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm Steve. I'm a new guy. They looked at me, walked right by me, walked right through the other door, didn't say a word. It was probably 2 months before they even spoke to me. I'm like, do I stink? Did I put on deodorant? What? I was just like sniffing my pits.
I'm like, I'm finding their badge number and eating everything in the fridge that has their number on it. Just like
exactly. And I'm like, and I use that as an example. You want people to feel welcomed in part, because if they don't feel welcomed, they're just going to sit there in the corner like out of place and feel like they're not part of anything.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just key to keeping them, because within the first 90 days, they're going to decide whether they're staying or leaving.
Right.
That's the name of my class, 90 days in. How the first 90 days are so important and integral to keeping this person. And this little things, like when you hire somebody, just as a manager, they're hired, just get a little card and just go around and have people sign it saying welcome and mail it to them. They get a card, they already feel welcomed. Have a lunch. When they come in, have lunch with a few people that work with them, talk, because lunch opens up the conversation and everything. You can put food in front of everybody. They're going to be happy and want to talk. Don't bring the grunt buckets in there that are going to just say, run, Forrest, run. You want the people in there that are going to encourage them and build them up and want them to stay. So, and get them excited about the job.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I mean, we do a really good job at making people want to leave. And it's just so important. Well, I actually am really happy you brought up sports, because I think my thought process with application process and retention stems a lot from like my coaching and athletic background, which is, I was recruited. And I was not Stanford material. I was NAIA, lower level college, just a hard worker. I was a good player, but I was not Caitlin Clark, so
Yeah.
but
Neither am I.
but when I was recruited, like I felt like a star, right? Like I felt
Yeah.
good, and I made decisions on where I played basketball by the experience that I had with these people that were recruiting me. And I think there was a time in law enforcement, just I speak from law enforcement because that's the area that I'm working in, where the department was the prize and everybody wanted to go to this department to play, to work. There was one opening, hundreds of thousands of applicants, and now it's the opposite, right? We have hundreds of openings, and we're trying to get people to want to come play at our school, but why should they? Why
Yeah.
should like we miss that recruiting aspect because we're stuck in this mindset that they should want to work here. They should be grateful that they have the opportunity to apply here, when we really need to shift that and be like, we are actually not the only ones trying to get them to play for us. So why should they choose
Yeah.
us?
Yeah. You're an investment to our team. I want Ashley to play for me because you're going to be an investment. You're going to be a good player for what I need. You're going to help me build my program. And we just need to let them know that they are an investment and make them feel like an investment and not just a butt in the seat to fill the hole. And I think that's where we get into it. I think we just make them feel like seat fillers instead of investments.
Yeah. And it's just wild to me, like, because, a lot of, new dispatchers who are in training will message me on the Raspi Dispatcher and be like, I'm having this terrible experience with my trainer. And it just blows my mind every time I talk to someone like that. Cause I'm like, do these people not like time off? Like, I really enjoy my every other week, 4 days off because we're staffed. Like, why do people make it so hard? Like, these people are not invested. I just got hired. Like, if I'm unhappy, I'm already looking for another job. Like, but if I actually feel good and feel supported, and it's tough, the training's tough, but everyone makes it feel worth it, then I'm gonna buckle up and I'm gonna stay invested in it. But you're making me feel like shit. I'm already flying.
Everybody has to encourage the new person. Because ultimately, like you said, you want the new person to stay. You want them to be there because that takes stress off you. That takes stress off our shift. That takes stress off the department. And you want them to succeed and do their best. You don't want them just to come in there and be like, just kind of half-ass do it and be like, well, they don't do their job, but they're just filling the seat. It's okay. You want them to be the best, so you got good backup. The officers and firefighters and EMTs out on the street know they have somebody looking after them, which is important too. And I just think we have to build those people up. That's just key to me. Investment. I just think when I look at somebody like that, I think you're an investment. You're an investment to what we have. You're important, and you have a lot to bring to the table.
And it's funny because we everywhere, the world's short-staffed, right? That's kind of result of pandemic, result of law enforcement and the industry. Like, we're all running on fumes. And the difference I always think between patrol and the dispatch center is like, you guys can run short a few officers, and like the different sectors gonna pick up a few more calls, or maybe the sergeant's like, we're not going out to that. Like, we can get rid of some lifting that comes through when we're running short in the field. 911, it does not matter if we are down a person, if we're used to working with 3 and now we have 2 in here, the phone is still gonna ring. I still have to answer it. I still have to process the call. Like, we might be running short, but our load doesn't change. It just means I'm answering more calls to fill in that like there's no getting rid of. I can't pick up the phone and be like, actually, sorry, we're down, one call back later, and hang up. Like we're still answering the call, processing, putting it to the board, and seeing if the sergeant wants to go on it, if it's almost doesn't meet criteria. Like our workload doesn't change, even if we're
Nope,
short
not at
staffed.
all.
It's just
I've never thought about it that way. You're right.
right, like because
Yeah.
we ran short on patrol before, and they're like, all right, we're not gonna go to that. That's be below load, and like we can get rid. But I'm still answering all these calls because
Yeah.
phone still
That
got to
phone
ring.
never stops ringing. Yeah, we can't send out a message to the community saying, "Hey, we're short-staffed tonight. Unless it's a real emergency, give us a call."
Could you imagine Everbridge or what's the other one that folks use? Nixle.
Nixle, yeah.
Dispatch is actually short-staffed today, so if it is if it can wait till tomorrow, call us then. Here's our non-emergency.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch that at work next week and see how it goes.
Yeah, go for it. Let me know how it goes.
What's gonna happen? Chief, I have a great idea. Like me and Stephen were on the podcast, like I'm alive and be like, that's what they do out in Virginia, Chief. I don't know. We should try it.
Yeah. I'll back you up.
Oh my gosh. Well, Stephen, this has been wonderful. I truly enjoyed our conversation. The last question that I ask everybody who comes onto the show is, what advice would you give someone who's considering a career in dispatch?
I believe I've already kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would tell them just to look into it. Don't just say, I want to be a dispatcher. Actually, see if you can do a sit-in with your dispatch centers and say, look, I'm interested in a job, but I kind of want to see what you guys do or how you handle calls to see if it's really for you, because this job is not for everybody. And I hate to see somebody come in and take a job and then leave and feel discouraged and really feel rough. But if you're in here and you want to do it and it's something you love, I encourage training. I encourage you to grow. There's tons of scholarships out there. There are APCO has scholarships. NENA has scholarships. Carolina Recording has scholarships. Me and a friend of mine, Holly, with Carolina Recording, we teach a class on So You're a Dispatcher Now What? And we teach you how to just build from there. Become a CTO once you're there for a little while. Then get your RPL or EMP and just grow and just never stop learning. If you're already in the industry and you love it, just never stop learning. Just grow yourself.
Amazing. Stephen, again, thank you so much. This was amazing. And yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you. All right, everybody. Another amazing episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. I think we could truly learn a lot from Stephen's journey through the first responder world, as well as checking in with yourself. If you are at a point where you want to pivot, where you need a change, there are tons of things you can do, whether it's going to the private sector or making a shift to another branch. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to try something new if you are at a point where you're ready to pivot. So until next time, everybody, stay raspy. And if you are at a conference, make sure to check out who the speakers are, because maybe you can catch Stephen. See you later, guys. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy.